All right, just another session on your families in coping with the holidays. Especially this one is for you, newly marrieds or young couples, people making some really tough decisions on your first Christmas together. Because guess what? The challenge of whose family gets to spend time with us on which day and when and where and how much. Wow, I bet you didn't anticipate what that was going to be like. Most couples don't. And you don't have to be a young couple. My husband and I went through that a little bit, even though it was a second marriage for both of us, and we were in our 40s. So, regardless of when you come to this stage, at some point, you're going to have to look at your significant other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your partner, your husband, your wife, and you're going to have to decide where you're going to spend Thanksgiving, where you're going to spend Christmas, Christmas Eve, and how you're going to negotiate all those decisions. Okay, it's never easy, but I'm going to give you a few pointers, okay? First of all, you have to do this in a fair and equitable way. That means each family gets some time. Yep, during the holiday season, that means you have to spend time with not just your family, but the ones you find even more stressful, your in-laws. You have to do it. You need to do it. And in fact, you should do it. So realize that and start negotiations early. I even think you should start negotiations now for next year if you haven't already done that, or if there was a big fight or conflict with your significant other this year. Both sides of the family are important. When you marry someone, you marry their family too. Yep, for better or for worse. That means you're going to need to embrace people that sometimes don't embrace you back. And you're going to have to embrace people that sometimes feel, well, uncomfortable for you because they're not your family. You think your family stresses you out. Your significant other's family might stress you even more because at least you're familiar with your own family stuff. You can prepare for that. Sometimes going into a family that isn't your family can be really difficult. But around the holidays, we do that for the people we love. So if you're married, you've got to negotiate how you're going to spend those holidays. Like I said, fair and equitable. And there are a few different ways of doing that. And a couple things that I'm just going to suggest because I've sat with people who are doing this. Sometimes we choose that we're going to spend Christmas with one family and Thanksgiving with another because those are kind of the two big holidays, especially if you're going to travel to be with either or both families. For my husband Kevin and I, both of our families lived in different states. So we couldn't go, well, we're going to have an early meal with one and a late meal with another. We had to travel. So we had to decide, okay, Thanksgiving with one and Christmas with one, or were we going to try to do a little bit of a holiday with each? Because you can do an early Thanksgiving with one, later Thanksgiving with another. But that means if one family gets the actual holiday, like the real Thanksgiving, then the other family might get the real Christmas and we visit the other family before or after. Does that make sense? But think about how you can do this equitably. It's a little bit easier with my husband's family because they do Christmas at Thanksgiving. Well, because all of the kids are adults now and they're all married with families, so they have spouses. So they decided they would do their family Christmas at Thanksgiving, so we could do the other side of the family at Christmas. So you might want to think about negotiating that. Now, if you happen to have at least one side of the family that lives in the same town as you, well, that makes it easier. If you happen to be blessed that both sides of the family live in the same place, then it's simply negotiating meal times and how you're not going to gain 50 pounds from eating 2 Thanksgiving dinners and 2 Christmas dinners. But either way, plan a time, not right before the holidays, not when it's really stressful, but a time that you and your spouse will sit down to discuss this option. Have already talked to both sides of the family to say, we're going to try to work this out in the most equitable way possible. And maybe do you have preferences? Is Thanksgiving more important? Is Christmas more important? Is it Christmas Eve? Is it Christmas Day? Because different people celebrate at different times. With my family growing up, our big celebration, and when we opened presents, was Christmas Eve. That was our big thing. A lot of people do Christmas morning for presents, and their big meal is Christmas Day. In that case, maybe you can negotiate. When is your family's big celebration? Now, okay, some of you are going to say, every day. We have big celebrations all the time. Well, I'm sorry, you got to make a choice. Which one are you going to be there with your family and which one are you going to be with your spouse's family? But the important part is that you have that discussion, that you not get too emotionally invested in it, and that you be willing to be generous. And if things don't go the way you really want this year, that means next year, because alternate years is also an option. That we spend Thanksgiving with one side of the family this year and the other side next year. And then we alternate Christmases as well. So everybody gets some time. It's equitable, right? Now, it gets even more complicated when you have blended families. Kevin and I were really blessed that both of his parents were just married to each other, and both of my parents were just married to each other. So we didn't have going to see mom and dad on both sides. But if you have that complication, and guess what? Our daughters do have that complication coming up for them someday. They'll have mom and dad on their side, and it's very likely that they'll have mom and dad on the other side. So some of our young couples today have 4 sets of families to see over the holidays. That starts to get really stressful. But folks, you can do it. You can negotiate. Or you could be like that couple in the movie Four Christmases and just go to the Caribbean every year for a vacation. I think I remember that they told people they were going on a mission trip. But anyway, no, I'm not suggesting that. But if the family stress gets too much in managing that, watching that movie might be a really fun release for all the stress. But you've got to decide how you're going to do this. And like I said, if you can do it in advance of the holidays, so you can really kind of plan and also give your moms and dads a heads up for the plan and say that next year it'll be different. Sometimes those conversations are difficult to have. And if you happen to be the parents or grandparents that have to share, try to be generous. Remember, it's the season of giving. That spirit extends to allowing the other side of the family to have time with those kids as well. So try to be generous, try to be loving, and remember, it's only a short period of time that you have to deal with this. Hey, before you go, if you found this helpful or you really liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe below, and tell your friends.